What do Falcons do? We rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, a show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general, the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, the Golden Hard Dog, and a lifelong sports fan. Guys, we're back. The NFL preseason is kicking off officially this week with Week 1. The Hall of Fame game is in the books. We have to see the new kickoff structure. It's too early for me to make a comment about it. I would like for the officiating to be consistent with it, but we'll see how that ends up going. I think it's going to be much more exciting, but we'll see how it ends up playing out. It definitely is going to take a while to get used to, especially watching it on television, watching it in person when I go to a game this year, but it's going to be an interesting one. But let's talk about the Falcons. We are coming up this week to play Miami Dolphins in Miami. I wish this game were local because I have a colleague and a partner who is a big Miami Dolphins fan and would love to go to that game with him. It just is in Miami. It's too far away. But very excited to see us back in action. Things that I would expect in this game. Week 1 preseason. I don't expect a ton of starters. You might get one series with Kirk Cousins just to shake some rust off, put him in a game time or a game mode just to see how he does, moving around, shaking some rust off from his injury. I don't think they're going to play him very aggressively, and if he plays a series in Week 1, I'd be surprised. I think he needs to play at least a series or a quarter in both Week 2 and Week 3 of the preseason. I think that's very important for him to shake rust off and to get some chemistry going with our weapons. He seems to be doing that in practice right now and in training camp. You hear nothing but praises on him, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. I'm hearing a lot of great praise from all of our starters, and even our backups like Tyler Algier are starting to shine at practice as well. But you know, this is not going to be really a time to evaluate starters. It's going to be a time to evaluate the roster bubble guys. And somebody who has been on the roster bubble here recently, especially with the free agent potential addition of Nathan Rourke, is Taylor Heinicke. I expect in Week 1 of the preseason to possibly see Kirk Cousins for one series. After that, I expect a healthy dose of Michael Penix, Taylor Heinicke, and Nathan Rourke throughout the rest of the game. And I think it just really depends. Taylor Heinicke has said that he sees the writing on the wall and he thinks that he's on the way out. I'm going to be a little upset if we cut him later on. We kept him in the beginning of free agency, and maybe that was just until we knew what we were going to be doing at quarterback, that we knew we could get Penix. But if that was the case, I feel like we should have cut him and let him move on and get an opportunity somewhere else and save that cap money at some other time, especially with the June designations on players. I think we could have saved a lot of money on that. But it is what it is. We'll see. Maybe we can save a couple $1 million if we end up cutting him and potentially sign somebody on for a little one-year deal that we end up needing later on in the year. But we'll see. Nathan Rourke, I don't know that he'll end up making the squad. He's had a couple of interesting games as a pro, but nothing that is earth-shattering. Certainly, it appears that they're going to be going Kirk Cousins 1, Michael Penix 2 in terms of the depth chart, plus or minus another quarterback off of the the practice squad to make that third spot. I just don't know that we really need that, and there are definitely other positions that we could use an extra man, especially with the new rule that you can have a emergent backup quarterback on your roster as well. I think there are other positions that we need. Now, what do I expect to see at the running back position? I do not expect to see Bijan Robinson touching the ball at all. I don't even know that I expect to see, Tyler Algier touching the ball at all. What I expect to see a healthy dose of Carlos Washington, who made the practice squad last year. I expect to see a healthy dosing of Jason McClellan, who will be battling for the fourth or third running back spot. Oh, excuse me. It's early when I'm making this video, guys. I also expect to be seeing a healthy mix-in of Avery Williams, who's been hurt off and on the last couple of years. He's been a special teams guy. But again, I think his job is on the line as now we brought in Ray McLeod, who probably will get a healthy dose of looks in the wide receiver role to be our special teams guy. I do think that they will rotate Avery and just said his name, Ray in on special teams just to see how they play in the new structure. We'll probably see that throughout the course of the offseason, or the preseason rather here. We may see some other guys that I would expect to see wide receivers on. You're going to see some guys like Josh Ali, Chris Blair, Dylan Drummond, O.J. Hilaire. Carnell Hodge is on the bubble to possibly not make the team, so I expect him to get plenty of looks. There's some other guys that I don't think will make the roster, but, some guys like Ray McLeod probably will get a few looks. Casey Washington, probably will get a healthy dose of targets, at least in Week 2 and Week 3. I don't know how featured he'll be in this week. But again, one of our rookies who has some pretty good potential. I do expect to see him out there. He's a big dude, 6 foot, 200 pounds, so I expect to see him out there trying to be a target machine. James Washington was added to our roster as well. Hasn't really played in the last 2 years. I think he's brought in more for a veteran presence. I do not think he ends up making the final squad, so I'm not sure he's worth even talking about at this point. For a tight end perspective, we're not going to see much Kyle Pitts, but I think John Fitzpatrick, this is like do or die time for him. He was drafted 2 years ago by a different regime, and I don't think we have much need for him at this point. He is probably the first man out of this tight end room. Probably going to see some Jordan Thomas, who has been good at different times over the course of the last couple of years. Offensive line, do not expect starters. I'm not even going to go into that. I think we pretty much have our offensive line room figured out. It's just a matter of who the practice squad guys are. On defense, I think some of our second-year starters need to get some healthy reps in. Guys like Zach Harrison, who's been talked about possibly not making the team by some team or some people that are doing 53-man roster predictions, just because he seems to have gained some weight, like about 20 pounds, and is no longer filling the role that he was last year. Now, he may have been asked to do that, but I just don't love that when I take a look at it. LaCale London will probably get some looks. I think Jason Smith-Williams, one of our additions from Washington Commies, he will get some looks. Excuse me again. But I'm not sure exactly how much there. You'll probably see a healthy mix of Brandon Dorlus and Ruke Ororo, as well as Zion Logue in the first couple of games as well. I think we'll be saving the first two of that trio more for our first team starters, first team looks. I don't think either of them will play beyond the second quarter of any of the preseason games. They're going to be guys that we need for depth and for potentially taking over the starting position in the future. Eddie Goldman, I think he needs some snaps. He's a little older, so he may only get like one series per game, but I do think he's needed. He has shown out in practice, and I think that he needs to get the rust off of him. He has been out of the league for 2 years, and he's somebody that I want to see performing. I think our inside linebacker room is pretty well sorted out at this point. It's going to probably be Troy Anderson, J.D. Bertrand, and then Caden Ellis and Nate Landman. I don't think anybody can crack into that room, so it's all about practice squad guys otherwise. And then looking at our edge rushers, I want to see Braylon Trice as well as, I want to see a little bit of Arnold Ebiketie. I want to see some of these guys show out. Our corner room is going to be interesting. The rumor is that Mike Hughes, who has been terrible, has actually been outshining Cart Phillips III. And I don't know if that's just like a little bit of preseason stuff. I would not want to see Mike Hughes taking starting corner 2 reps for this team based on his performance last year. If he has grown as a player, then absolutely would love to see him take a step forward. But I think we've got something in Cart Phillips III, and I would rather see him play. Excuse me. And the same thing can be said with the safety room. It is obviously J.C. Bates III leading that room. I am not a fan and have not been a fan of Richie Grant for the last 2 years. I think he started okay. He had the potential as a second year. And third and fourth year, our third year was terrible. Second year at the end of it was terrible. We're going into his fourth year. I don't love this. I think we're going to be replacing him, but apparently he's outshining DeMarco Hellams right now, who was better last year. I would like to see DeMarco Hellams take that safety 2 role. But I think you're going to see a healthy mix of DeMarco as well as Trey Tarpley, who's on the practice squad list right now as well. And then you'll see our starting special teams guys, because we don't have anybody on the roster, even practice squad guys for that. So Bradley Pinion, excuse me, Younghoe Koo, and Liam McCullough all starting, and they are all safe to make this roster. But guys, that's just my thoughts. I'm excited to have football coming back. We're not going to be seeing the first string of Miami either. They've got a ton of talent, but we're not going to be seeing their first string. Preseason wins and losses mean nothing. It's all about seeing how players develop, how well the ball is moved. Again, that can be really misleading. Desmond Ridder had a great single series last year because that's all Arthur Smith thought he should play, which was stupid. And it's definitely soured me on the idea of starters only playing like one series in the preseason. I want to see a full quarter at some point of our starters, maybe 2 full quarters between games of our starters, just to shake some rust off. I think it very much has a similar mentality to the playoffs, where teams that typically rest their starters in Week 18, if they're guaranteed their current spot in the playoffs, they don't typically make the entire run and go all the way. You lose some momentum when you do that. I think we need all the momentum we can get with a new coaching staff, with a new quarterback, with a completely new scheme. I think it makes a lot of sense to play starters as much as feasibly possible without running the risk of injury too much. That's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. We're back. We have football. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing. I will have regular videos coming out weekly going forward. And as always, rise up.